Thanks for joining us on the NRT Now podcast, part of the largest Christian music site online, newreleasetoday.com. Sit back and relax as we chat with your favorite artists, introduce you to new artists, and more. Now here's your host, Jake.
We are here with our Christmas episode, and I figured that we should have somebody on for this episode that has released a Christmas album recently. Francesca, do you know anybody we should invite? Anybody that's released one lately?
I think maybe for King and Country, didn't they recently release one?
I think they did. Released a song or something?
Something like that. I did. It was me.
So we're in the right spot here.
Perfect.
We were here with Francesca Battistelli. Thanks so much for hanging out with us for a while on this wonderful Christmas episode with a wonderful Christmas album out.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I've been a fan of Francesca since you had a couple of dents in your fender and a rip in your jeans. I promise I've only been working on that for a couple of months. Corny jokes. I'm in full-on dad joke mode. I have another one coming, so I'm really trying to prepare for all the dad jokes that I can.
Absolutely. Got to get them, get them under your belt. Make sure you have a good arsenal of dad jokes.
I'm sure by this point in the mom life, it's more like I got a weird smell in my van and a sun stain on my shirt.
Absolutely. Both are very accurate.
So you have
5 kids, yes.
The youngest one is just a little over a year, isn't it?
He's a little under a year. He'll be 1 in January.
Doesn't that just fly so fast?
So fast. It's just crazy. Crazy how fast it goes.
With having a young one like that, how has it been through this quarantine season just to be able to just be home and watch the kids grow? And just talk about the time that you've been able to spend with the kiddos, because I know you've been working on paring down the number of shows you have for that as well.
Yeah, it's been amazing for us. Honestly, we've been scaling back the amount of touring we've been doing in the past few years anyway. And then of course, with being pregnant and due in January, we didn't have much planned for this year. We weren't right in the middle of a tour like a lot of people in March when everything shut down. It wasn't as much of a surprise to us as some artists. I'm thankful for that we were prepared to take most of the year off. Obviously, it's still a shock to our industry. I feel like we've been affected a lot and people don't really talk about it because it's not something you think about. But we have loved the time at home and loved being with our family, and having Benny's first year with me completely home has been awesome.
Ramping into Christmas here, what are some of the Goodwin traditions for Christmas that you guys have developed with the kids through the years?
Yeah, we have several. We always do Christmas pajamas on Christmas Eve. We go to our church's Christmas Eve service, which we'll do this year as well. And we typically try to stay in town for Christmas morning. And then my husband's family lives in Georgia, just a few hours away. So we'll either do Christmas with them before or after. This year it'll be after. So we'll drive down there on Christmas Day and see all the cousins and, have that big family time. Yeah, it's really sweet. We do an advent calendar. My kids are really good at remembering things. They're like, well, this time last year we did this. I'm like, well, let's do it again. So it's been a really fun season for sure.
That's so cool. And now let's talk about this album a little bit. One of the things that I really love about this new Christmas album is just the fun of it all. And it really retains that old-timey's not right. Traditional Christmas, like the swing, the big band era. I was talking with a friend not long ago and she said, oh man, that album just makes me so happy. Like, this is so cool.
Oh, yay. I love that.
I really love the traditional aspect of all these songs and not over redone or something, just kind of bringing it back to the tradition. Talk a little bit about the fun and how much fun the kids had in listening to the album and hearing the album. And I think they're even in Rudolph, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, that was super fun. They've performed with me a couple times on stage, been on stage. They've never been in the studio until Rudolph. So they're all on there singing the callback parts of that song. And we even had Benny do a little laugh at the end, so he'd be represented. But just like my first Christmas album, I really love Christmas music. I love, like you were talking about, vintage Christmas music, and Sinatra and Dean Martin and Nat King Cole and Bing Crosby and all those guys, Ella Fitzgerald. So we tried this time around specifically to really sort of take some of their versions of specific songs. I picked my favorite versions and recreate them without modernizing them too much. So some of the songs, my producer even had the band, I don't know how they did it. I wasn't in the room. It sounds very difficult, but they basically followed the track of like the arrangement of these songs. And so like take Sleigh Ride, for instance, they would beat map it. So instead of putting everything on a grid and having it be perfectly timed, they followed the band because there were no click tracks back then. And so the band is like all over the place in tempo. And so he had our band play to that click track, which really gives it just a live feel. The song will speed up and slow down. That's on maybe 4 of the tracks. And I love it. The only time it was hard is when we tried to play it live. We're like, how do we do this? It's so hard. But we figured it out. And I think he knocked it out of the park. You know, our spin is definitely on it. Not all the parts are exactly the same, like on Let It Snow and Rudolph, but we definitely paid homage to those versions of the song. I feel like a lot of modern Christmas music is just so digital sounding, or it gets really boring. Like, I'm not trying to throw shade to anybody, but people are like, let's do an acoustic version of the song. I'm like, let's not. Let's do something fun. So that's been my vision for both albums. I feel like we really accomplished it.
As you're talking about some of these recording techniques, a lot of people that haven't done anything in studio or know much about that process, just even live worship, now you have that click track that everything's got to be on time and on sync, which is good in one aspect. But you're right, sometimes it does get like too over perfect. You know, it kind of loses the organic feel.
Totally.
And I love what you're saying there. It used to be the drummer leads it, and if the drummer had too much coffee, you're going to go forever.
Yes, exactly.
Or if it was a late night the night before, you're going to be dragging. You know, it's all dependent on the drummer.
Totally. Yeah, it's true. And there's something about that that's really cool about live music when you're not using a click, and to sort of capture that on the record. I think it did give it just a little more life and warmth.
If you were just out on the back porch, because I do this all the time, you know, acoustic guitar, drums, all out on the back porch. But I mean, it just gives that really live and organic. I think that adds to a little bit of the fun, is that there is no script. You know, it isn't exact. It's not precise. And like, it's just that organic, I guess, is the best word for that.
Totally.
One of the big songs on this album is Behold Him. Actually, I've got to be honest before we get too far. This is the first Christmas album that I've listened to this year, and I listened to it last week. So,
oh, that's awesome.
So I'm the late bloomer when it comes to Christmas music. I figured I probably should listen to the album before we did this conversation here, so it was my first one begrudgingly. But one of the ones that really stood out was Behold Him. You know, even before looking through any of the material, seeing it's a radio single. Man, just a very powerful song. And especially this year when not having people around the Christmas table, around the Christmas tree, all that is just very in focus. It's always been there years past for different families. It's been very painful for some people here and there, but it just seems like it's a year where that's just so globally present all in total. So, I mean, just the power of that song. Talk a little bit about that song and what went into that one.
We actually wrote that song before COVID. So January of 2019, I guess, it was right after Christmas. And the plan was to put it out Christmas of 19, so a year ago. And we were getting closer and closer, and it was going to just be like an EP. And I just have a thing against EPs. I don't know why. I don't like them. And so I was like, I was struggling with it anyway. And then the closer we got to it, things just weren't going to be done in time, just with my label and everything. And I felt really clearly like we were not supposed to force it out last year. And so I called my label and I was like, we need to not do this. And they were like, okay, that's totally fine. And so when everything obviously happened with COVID, I wasn't sure if they were still going to be down for me doing the Christmas album. I just really didn't know what the industry was going to do. And they were like, let's do it. So we decided to make it a full album, which I'm so glad we did. And obviously put the song out this year. I knew that the song was timely when everything started happening. I was like, that's why the Lord saved it. That's why he told us to stop. It was because people needed it more this year. And I knew that, but I hadn't actually listened to it for months, just for whatever reason. And so when we were getting mixes back on the other songs, I was like, let's listen to Behold Him, because it was done. It was mixed. It was mastered. It was ready to go. And we listened to it with some friends back in the summer, and we all were just crying. We're like, well, okay, Lord, it's the time. It's the year for it. So I'm just so thankful. That was one of those songs I wrote it with two of my best friends, best writing buddies. I've written a ton of stuff that I've cut with me. And, sometimes you wrestle with a song, and this was not that. This was like, Lord, please give us a song. And he was like, boop, here it is. We actually wrote two that day. We wrote Behold Him and Christmas Valentine, which could not be further apart. But they were both just such gifts from the Lord. And really the only reason I decided to put anything out was because of those two songs. They were just so incredible. And I felt so excited about making Christmas music again that they kind of launched the whole album. So yeah, I love it. And it still makes me cry.
Something that I hadn't really thought about in years, kind of one of those things that I put back, is we moved down here to Texas in 2012. And it was either that year or the year after we had found out that we were pregnant. It would have been our second one. And It was right around Christmas. She'd started spotting, and then we went to Christmas Eve service, with the kid and all that. And then it was 5 a.m. Christmas morning that the rest of it kind of took its place. That was our first miscarriage. First baby was completely textbook. She wasn't comfortable here yet. She left all of her family and moved down here, which, it's crazy to me. She left all of her family to come with my crazy family. So, props on her.
So sweet.
So she wasn't, completely comfortable. And then we had that literally Christmas morning. And bless all those people in the hospital, because, they knew it was up and all that. And so once all that, we got out of the hospital, we went back to my dad's house, and we kind of had to play it normal. Our older one was 2, 3-ish. So I lose track of time. She's turning 10, and I don't know where all those years went.
I know, right?
Oh, man. But, so we kind of had to kind of put on that brave face and just really push back any of that mourning, any of that pain until later that day. And I'm not even sure how long it took us to really even process that, because we had to pull it back for Christmas and act like everything was normal for her. And
yeah.
So, I'm just sitting here listening to the song Behold Him, and man, that one hit me square between the eyes. And I don't think I quite did the ugly cry like you were talking about, but man, just the impact of that song is just, incredible. Just the message of no matter what happens, no matter who's there, who's not there. This year, a lot of the major family gatherings aren't happening this year. To just behold him. The Savior of the world was born here in Christmas. And to just, that redirection is just such a powerful, powerful song.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm so thankful because, we often talk about the joy of Christmas and the fun things, and I'm all about that. And obviously I made a really fun record, but I think most people have some hard things to deal with at Christmas, whether it's a tragedy like that happens once, or it's just memories of hard things in their past, or whatever it looks like. There are people suffering this time of year. And even in the middle of hard circumstances, even in a year like 2020, when things are just hard and uncertain and the world is bananas, we can look up and we can behold him, even without answers, And that's the beauty of the song, is that we don't have to know everything. We don't have to even be healed of all of our pain. In that moment, we can still look up to Jesus and trust him, because that's kind of what our walk is all about, is, blessed are those who believe and don't see. Sometimes we get answers to our prayers, sometimes we don't. And we still are called to and are able to, lift our eyes and behold him. So that's really the theme of this year, right?
Yes. And if there's anything that's a theme for this year, it's that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I heard recently is that it's not necessarily that Jesus was born. Yes, that's the main focus, but really what happened was hope and joy entered the world. Because at the end of the day, through Jesus, we have the hope of, we know where we're going. No matter what happens in 2020, doesn't matter what the circumstances is, we have that hope and we have a joy through Jesus Christ.
So good. So good. Yep.
Let's talk about Christmas Valentine here.
Okay.
A different, unique song around Christmas. Like, we have all these Christmas carols. We have Behold Him, that's the tearjerker. And then we have Christmas Valentine in the middle of all this. Talk a little bit about that song.
Well, literally the same day we wrote Behold Him, we were like, if it's only noon or whatever, let's write another song. And what should we write? And think it was my friend Molly just started playing this fun little groove on the guitar. And we said, what if we write something completely different? And it's like a love song, like a Christmas love song. And so we just kind of started throwing out lines, and it also came really easily, which was so fun. Such a fun song to write. At one point, we were trying to figure out what the hook should be. What's the title? What's the chorus? What's the point of the song? And I just said it. Like before I'd even processed the words, I'm like, what if it's like, you're my Christmas Valentine? And everybody was like, oh my gosh, that's even me. I was like, that's genius. Which I didn't think of it. I feel like the Lord was just like, here you go. And it was just such an easy, fun song to write. It literally, we're all married and we're all just being silly and thinking of our spouses and like, oh, let's, you dance to Nat King Cole and you watch, what is it? The Peanuts movie, Charlie Brown. Yes. And like, what are all our favorite things about Christmas, and trying to remember back, like before we had kids, what would Christmas look like? And it was just so fun to write that song. And I love it. I think it's so clever and so cute, and just such a fun way to sort of think about, your person at Christmas time.
I'm sitting here trying to think of what our Christmas were before kids. Cause like I said, we have a 10-year-old.
I can't remember. I know.
It's been a solid decade since that's happened. And
yep, same here. Our oldest is 10. I was thinking about it the other day, and I'm like, I guess we woke up and had Christmas morning. Like, I don't remember. I don't know.
We have a mistletoe above our kitchen light, and so you kind of got to be careful and sneak through before the kids go, ew.
That's so cute. I love it.
Are your kids like that too? Or is it just mine that, just my wife and my kids like, ew.
Oh, totally. Oh, they're like, that's so gross. Do it again. That's so funny. They secretly love it.
Yeah. They won't show it, but yeah.
No.
So let's talk about Christmas road trips.
Okay.
They always have the potential to be quite the ride. Talk about the Goodwin road trips, for Christmas. Like you said, you're going to Georgia to see family with 5 kiddos. It's got to be a riot.
Oh, it's a riot. It's a whole thing. We used to have like a DVD player in our car, and that made them pretty easy. We now do not. And we also don't do any like iPads or anything like that. We used to. We don't anymore. So it's a lot more talking. It's a lot more asking questions and asking, are we there yet? How long till we get there? I mean, my 10-year-old is probably the worst. I'm like, you are the one with the most concept of time. You know that it takes like 4 hours. We've been gone for 15 minutes. Why are you asking me this question? Oh man. But I've tried all the things, I've tried like making them little activity packs and little snack bags and thinking this will keep them busy. I feel like I'm still crawling back there 20 times, but these years, the days are long, but the years are short. And I know one day they'll all be back there quiet and as teenagers, and I'll be like, anybody want to talk? We have a couple games that we play, like basically 20 questions and I Spy, and it's fun. It's loud. It takes forever. I feel like one kid will fall asleep and then we'll all have to be quiet. And then the one you want to fall asleep usually won't. And it's just a whole thing, but it could be worse.
Well, and with the 10-year-old, once we start getting up to that age there, some of the 20 questions starts to get a little dangerous. Like,
right?
Do I really want them asking these questions yet?
Right, exactly. That's so funny.
And not in front of your brother or sister, please. Like,
exactly.
No.
Exactly.
Well, of course, Christmas car sing-alongs have to happen, especially around Christmas.
Yeah, for sure.
The carpool karaoke, if we're going by the James
Corden,
there we go. It's been a while since I've watched live TV, so I'm relying on my YouTube suggestions. There we go. But yeah, so we've got the carpool karaoke. What is the favorite Christmas carol? What is a favorite carpool karaoke song for the kids?
I feel like they ask for Jingle Bells a lot. And whether that's like regular Jingle Bells or Jingle Bell Rock, they love anything Jingle Bells right now. They like to hear Rudolph. They want to hear themselves. Pretty much anything. I'm just continually playing Christmas music for them and nobody's complaining. So that's good.
I feel like there's going to be like an over Christmas song in the 4 hours that it takes to get to Georgia.
Oh, there's going to be a lot. Yeah.
As parents know, like, it doesn't matter how many times a song or a video is played. it's still the greatest thing for every time.
Oh, every time. You're like, really? Again? Okay.
Frozen again? Seriously?
Mhm.
Now it's Frozen 2, which I'm not sure is any better, but
Yeah, I agree.
oh man. So as we're wrapping up 2020 here, what do you see as good has come out of 2020? What has given you hope? What's given you joy throughout this crazy wild ride of a year?
Yeah, we were just talking about this morning with our kiddos. I think, personally, there's been a lot of blessings for us. We had Benny in 2020 and just a lot of little things that the Lord has done just in our community. It's been awesome. But I think globally, there's been a lot of hard, but there's been a lot of coming together of communities and churches and people who you really kind of find your people when stuff like this is going on. And I think priorities get shifted in a good way. And for us, we had already decided that we wanted to be home more and spend more time with our family. But I'm hearing that from people who I hadn't heard that from before, which is I think a really good thing. I think being forced to slow down kind of reminds us like, so wait, why are we freaking out? Like, why are we running ourselves ragged when we maybe don't have to all the time? I think that's been a good sort of general thing that's come out of this year and just this time.
I'll ask the next one. What are you looking forward to, in 2021? Are you going to be out on the road a little bit more with all the kids in tow? What are you looking most forward to from what we've seen in 2020 moving into this next year?
Yeah, we don't really know. There's a lot of unknown in our life right now, I think, with everybody. But I'm just looking forward to new adventures and whatever that looks like, whether there's some time on the road or not. We're still figuring all that out, but I know that God is up to something. So I'm here for it.
For all of you, you can hear the kiddos running wild in the background, which I love. I know you guys can't see, but Francesca's giving the look of like, oh my gosh. But no, it's amazing. It's amazing. I love that sound of, the kids just having fun. And
yeah,
I think it adds a little bit to the podcast here. So
good. It's uncontrollable at times. I'm like, well, there it is.
Yeah. Well, we have the 10-year-old and now we have the infant. At the time of this recording, a 0.95 of a kid yet to go. So I guess that'll be one of mine if I could share. I talked about the miscarriage. We've had 2 Christmases in a row where my wife has been pregnant. This is the point where she's like over big and just uncomfortable and all that fun stuff. So her feelings are kind of mixed on being pregnant for 2 Christmases. But no, just the sound of kids. That's what Christmas is, and just the family time. And with the story of the miscarriage now to having 2 more, the sound of kids running around and babies yelling and all the stuff is just, man, it's a lot of fun. That bleeding in is just amazing here. Like I said, I think it adds to the Christmas episode. So thank you, kids, for yelling and screaming and helping bring the joy. And
you got it.
like I said, obviously, we hear them, but we just really appreciate you hanging out with us for a while.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me, and Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Thanks for hanging out with us for this episode of the NRT Now podcast. Be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And special thanks to Neon Feather for providing our theme music. Make sure to check out newreleasetoday.com and our socials for more great content. See you next episode.